everyone. I think we've just still got the music coming over the top, which is the holding music. So we'll just wait for that to end there. Cool. Awesome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AgTech and Rural session for this year's conference. So we have you for the next 90 minutes, and we have some really great stories and presentations from Eagle and also from a lot of the users within the AgTech community. So I look forward to showing you some of those. So we'll just crack into things now. So your presenters for today, I'm Lauren McCartney. I'm on the technical solutions team and I'm a product lead there. I'll be your MC for today, and I'm also going to be joined by Murray McCallum, who I'm sure many of you already know, who's our agribusiness development executive. So he'll be talking to you in a wee bit about kind of what Eagle's been doing. So in terms of questions for this session, you hopefully are familiar with Chime now. So Chime is the online platform that we're running for this year's conference. So if you haven't used it already in the plenary session this morning, there's a little ask button down the bottom. So just going to check something here. Cool. Yeah, there's a little ask button down the bottom there. So if you want to go ahead and click on that and then select the AgTech and Rural session. And then in your question, it'll be really helpful if it's for one of the presenters, if you just pop in their name and we'll just know that the question is directed for them. So at any point in the session, feel free to go ahead and ask a question and hopefully we'll be able to answer them at the end. If we can't answer them, then we're going to do a bit of a follow-up and be able to kind of answer all of your questions to everyone who attends this presentation. So don't worry, it'll be answered. So in terms of our agenda for today, so we're going to be starting off with a bit of an Eagle sector lead update from Murray. And as I said before, it'll be a bit about kind of what Eagle's been seeing in the agri space this year, and also some key trends that we've identified. After that, we'll be doing a bit of a technology update, looking at some of the common patterns of use of AgTech and GIS in the AgTech sector. And then we'll also be going into some really great user stories across the sector. So we'll be hearing from Miraka, Pamu Farms of New Zealand, Vinea and Kaingaroa Timberlands as well. And then at the end, we'll have that Q&A session where you'll be able to ask myself and also our users about anything that they've gone through today. So first of all, we're going to hear a couple of words from Murray.
Welcome everyone to the AgTech Rural session. Pleased to have you here this afternoon. And for those that don't know me, my name is Murray McCallum and I'm the agribusiness lead for Eagle Technology. And have we got a lineup for you this afternoon? And what we've been doing this year has been quite interesting. We've had a lot of activity around agribusiness and mainly the agriculture sector, primarily around the pressures from regional council and government around the questions that have been asked on the farmers and suppliers around the environment and how the ArcGIS tools are looking to solve and answer those questions. Other trends have been digitisation of forms. We've seen a lot of this through the forestry sector. Compliance management, which I just touched on, yield productivity, Internet of Things, sensors are becoming more and more important in the sector, imagery, satellite, drone, how we're using ArcGIS to manage and edit this vital information, and then the farm map, bringing that farm map alive. And the range of speakers we have this afternoon for you will be covering some of the things that I've just touched on, and we are really enjoying, looking forward to working through the afternoon session. And Lauren, a big thank you to you, and over to you.
It used to be, how do you get data? Now it's all about, what do you do with all this data? So what we're trying to do to address this grand challenge in the face of all of these destabilizing factors in agriculture is to make agriculture more precise, and more sustainable.
We can't simply double our acreage to produce this food. What we need to do is develop new crop production strategies based on the cloud and the ability to develop repositories for all this data, right? When we combine all this data, we can develop models.
We need maps of the in-field variation that's going on out there. To do that, we need a tremendous amount of data.
But trying to figure out how to consolidate it has been quite a challenge. Right now, we have to take and manually put the data into a program.
What we would like to build towards is a system that's cloud-based, to where we can bring this information from all of our locations back into a single cloud presence.
Aggregation, data visualization, and analytics.
The only way we're able to do that is with machine learning and AI now. We're able to generate those maps and recommend to growers how to alter their production on a, piece-by-piece basis across that field. It's automated recommendations that growers can act on is the goal.
If you had that data in a set, then you could start to build scientific stuff into it and figure out what farmers have. Once you got a big enough pool of farmers that are putting their data in, turn it into a common language, and then partition that out so that everyone can have their own silo.
Cool. So as you can see, there is a worldwide pattern occurring in agriculture looking for better and for more effective ways to manage the data that's coming in from farms, from crops, and from all different types of agribusiness. And spatial technology like ArcGIS is becoming more and more key to this. By bringing together different layers of information, farmers and growers are able to better understand and visualize how their farm is performing, how they can operate more efficiently, they can increase productivity, and how they can kind of better meet governmental compliance regulations. This can then be delivered through a range of catered capabilities across the platform, from field-based workflows to pure mapping of assets, to perhaps monitoring and reporting on yield growth via summary dashboards. Now this year we've been doing a bit of R&D and prototyping into 6 key areas where ArcGIS is being used to solve location-based problems within agriculture. Now these include, but they're obviously not limited to, maps for farm management, farm safety, crop productivity, compliance management, integrating in the Internet of Things, and then drone monitoring and imagery analysis. And this is what we're going to go through in this tech update. So the first one here is looking at how to spatially manage your farm, well, creating maps for farm management. So geospatial technology is allowing farmers to make better and more informed data-driven decisions, but that all begins with having an accurate baseline web map. Now this could be sourced from information you've captured yourself out in the field, or derived from drone or aerial imagery, or it could be from one of the many authoritative and ready-to-use layers that are actually within the ArcGIS platform and are freely available to you. ArcGIS itself is also designed to work with your current systems as well. So it's augmenting your existing investments and processes, and this can be easily presented and communicated back through to others as well. So first of all, we're going to crack into a demonstration of how this could work. So Julian Pilawa and myself have put together a bit of a demo looking at how to spatially manage your farm with ArcGIS. Now this here might be a familiar sight. Maps, like this PDF, have always played an important role in the way farmers manage their land and assets. It may have been as simple as drawing on here where a new fence line was, but we want to show you how easy it is to transition from traditional paper-based mapping to a digital, interactive, up-to-date and easily maintainable web application of your farm.
So here is that same PDF map georeferenced onto a digital map, a web map of Castle Point Station, and their 3,000 hectare sheep and dairy farm positioned on the beautiful Wairarapa coastline. Managing a farm of this size is no easy feat. Understanding where the existing assets are, what condition they're in, and what areas or assets need to be prioritised and maintained more regularly can be easily achieved by first building up a spatially accurate digital twin of the area. And accurate data doesn't just have to be data you capture yourself out on the farm, like these gates, troughs and tanks, but they could be sourced from drone captured or aerial imagery. But you'll have to check out our other focused video for more on that. ArcGIS web maps allow you to collate a variety of data types from a variety of data sources in the form of layers. and there are thousands of publicly available, ready-to-use layers waiting to be used in your own mapping applications. To get started, I can bring in imagery for all of New Zealand, captured by the regional councils and made freely available by Land Information New Zealand. This is just one of the many base maps available to start building up this baseline web map. I also have access to the ArcGIS Living Atlas, a repository of free, authoritative, ready-to-use layers, made available by the likes of LINs, such as these river centerline and property parcel datasets, watershed locations, such as that provided by NZEUC, plus many local councils in New Zealand make their own layers available, such as these soil and erosion susceptibility layers supplied by Greater Wellington Regional Council. And the best thing about these layers is that they're all live, so when I save my map, the data within them will stay up to date when the data owner pushes a new update out. Having an accurate map is fundamental to a lot of farm practices, whether that be asset management, day-to-day operations, or implementing mitigations, and quality is key. So how can we better manage our farm assets while out and about the property itself? Field-based applications such as ArcGIS Collector enable those out working on the farm to have easy access to their farm's information in their back pocket, to not only view where assets such as tanks, feeders and gates are located, but also update asset information out in the field. Here, I'm accessing the same farm map that we're viewing in the browser, but this time on my mobile device, and I have access to the same layers, bookmarks, and measuring tools. By taking a map-centric approach to data capture, we can use precision crosshairs to add, update, or edit these features. And if your farm has limited internet connectivity, ArcGIS field apps such as this support working in offline environments too. Here, we're going to capture a new fence line. And it is well known that farm fence lines need to comply with council regulations regarding proximity to known waterways. I can either snap to an existing feature, or in this case, freehand draw where this proposed new fence line will go. And once my geometry is complete, I can begin entering my attribute information. This includes the intended purpose of the paddock and numerical information about the slope. In doing this, if I click on the feature, you'll be able to see that some additional details have been calculated for me based on the attributes I filled out. This includes the recommended fencing and fence setback. By implementing business logic into the form, we can help make better informed decisions and understand if my proposed fence line will indeed comply with environmental regulations. Understanding mitigations like these can be especially helpful for compliance, and in particular for farm environment plans. One of the key benefits of having an interactive and up-to-date map is that while I'm out here, I can see that a colleague has identified a broken gate nearby. And once I've fixed that gate, I can simply update the attributions to ensure others either out around the farm or back in the office knows it's been addressed, hitting two birds with one stone. Now, having maps like this at your fingertips is incredibly useful for maintaining an accurate record of your farm assets. However, there are simply some things you cannot visualize in 2D, which you can in 3D. 3D scenes provide a realistic view of your farm, where we can explore and visualize our 2D layers in a new way, like our new proposed fence line. We can better understand spatial distribution of trees around the farm and proximity to buildings. And it can be used as a useful measuring tool to help me to understand perhaps future mitigations which need to be put in place. In this case, having a better understanding of the slope and potential erosion risk on my farm. And last but not least, we can explore that beautiful Wairarapa coastline.
This information you've seen collated and captured can now be shared with others to make better decisions. Maybe about where our vulnerable assets are, how we can triage the management of them, and also how much we are investing each year in maintaining them. Cool, so on to our next pattern of use, farm safety. So once you have your baseline web map in place, you can begin to build upon it by overlaying other layers of contextual information. Now this could include the location of hazards on a farm, your high voltage areas, your chemical storage areas, erosion or flood prone land. And this could all be captured simply via a mobile device through a form, a map, or a button-based approach. And we'll see some examples of these later in today's session. All of this information can then be summarized and shared with not only your staff, but then contractors in a secure way. And this data can then be reported against via summary dashboards as well. Now, another way that organizations use geospatial technology is from a business analytics approach through tying production and financial information to a location. Now, this could be to measure the success of your crop or pasture, or identify trends across time and space to understand the variables that might be maybe contributing to yield variations. And again, this can be communicated to your stakeholders. Compliance in agriculture itself is in fact a very spatial problem. It involves bringing together location-enabled data sets and analysis to connect the various aspects of a farm. Now, this is something we are really seeing more and more of from our customers, and we are going to hear some really specific and really great innovative ways that organizations are doing this in our upcoming user stories. So I'm going to leave it to them today. Now, another pattern of use we're seeing businesses apply is bringing ArcGIS into the IoT space. Now, the importance of location plays a big part in terms of how farmers and how growers can best use and interpret the data collected by these types of sensors. Spatial technology is enabling farmers and growers to integrate with external systems and sensors and bring them again as layers of information into their maps, feeding them into that baseline web map and using that as their center of the central kind of point of view. And finally, drone monitoring. So from planning and capturing drone imagery of your farm or your orchard to processing, managing and analyzing the results, and then dissemination and sharing this information. The ArcGIS platform provides more of an end-to-end workflow catering for all these steps with the aim to quickly and easily handle drone data so you can gain more insight about your farm or your property. And further to that, what you can do with the imagery that is captured. So either drone or otherwise, we have a great example of that for you to see just now. We are strengthening our local relationship here with Planet, who have built an add-in for ArcGIS Pro that enables some really cool workflows. In this case, it's related to detecting forest inventory change.
Today, I'm going to talk to you about building a forest inventory change dashboard with this workflow. First, you'll need to download the base map quad that you care about using the ArcGIS Pro add-in. Then label and classify that raster using the classification tools that you can find in ArcGIS Pro. And then you can use the tables and rasters to build an operations dashboard to share with your colleagues. To start, we're going to get into ArcGIS Pro, download the ArcGIS Pro add-in, and make sure it's installed properly. Once you've done so and you've logged in, you can search for the particular base map that you want to download. I'm going to use a base map that is just along the border of Oregon and Washington, which has plenty of forest activity. You can see here that I'm pulling the base map in, and then I'll do a quick search for the particular forest stand that I want to download. After defining my search, it'll tell me which are available, and I can select the destination to download this at. Once those samples are downloaded, I'll pull those in and go ahead and just take a quick look at them. I chose May and July because I saw significant change, and you may do so as necessary for your demonstration. I also determined that it would be best to clip this particular raster file to this forest stand and do my classification here. After using the clip raster function, I'm going to go ahead and use the training samples manager to define the classes within my raster. You can see here that I've already done some of this labeling, red indicating harvest, yellow indicating rejuvenating, and green indicating forest. Once I have these, I want to go ahead and run the classify with the support vector machine and my input training samples, which then will output this map, again indicating harvest, rejuvenating, and forest classes. After using this workflow on both the May and July 2019 datasets with the same training samples, you can see the changes between these different rasters. I also used the zonal histogram tool to generate a table, which will then be used in the operations dashboard I will show next. After publishing my layers to ArcGIS Online, I can pull them into an operations dashboard to summarize the insights I have derived. On the left-hand panel chart, you can see the changes from May 2019 to July 2019, the classes that we used previously. In addition, we've also summarized the difference between the two timestamps in green. On the right-hand panel, we can show the visual changes from May to July 2019. Furthermore, we can pull in those classified rasters, identify the areas of major change, and measure the forest depletion in that area. In summary, I have shown you the 3 steps required to build a forest inventory change dashboard. Download the base map using the ArcGIS Pro add-in, label and classify, and pull your layers into a dashboard to share your insights with your colleagues. Thank you for listening, and be sure to keep an eye out for a webinar workshop that will walk you through the individual steps required to complete this workflow. Thank you.
Cool. So thanks to Planet Lab for that presentation. And I'm hoping that people can kind of see that application beyond just the forestry inventory change that we saw there, looking at how we can kind of apply that to different sort of areas. So next we're going to be moving on to our keynote speaker. So this is part of our user stories, and they're going to be talking about how they can use ArcGIS to improve the way that they work. So kicking this off is Grant Jackson from Miraka. So Miraka, if you don't know them already, are an iwi-owned dairy processing organisation that are based in Taupo. Grant himself has built an extensive agribusiness career in technical sales and leadership within the primary sector. But coupled with this, he's had various leadership roles, looking at the Bank of New Zealand, Livestock Improvement Corporation, and now at Miraka, he's going to be telling us about Miraka's farm environmental plan. So we'll just hand it over to Grant.
Kia ora koutou, it's Grant Jackson here, General Manager of Milk Supply at Miraka. We're a small iwi-owned dairy processor based in Taupo in the central North Island. We started processing milk back in July 2011, where 2 iwi leaders came together with a vision of taking a differential story around their dairy farm source and taking it direct to the consumer. And it's grown from there to now being processing 300 million litres of milk per year from 104 farmer suppliers, of which 65 to 70% of those suppliers are not iwi shareholders, but mum and dad farmers simply on supply terms. So Miraka is underpinned by a real essence around Māori values, around intergenerational view and stewardship of the resources, also known as kaitiakitanga. So there's no compromise around our commercial success while still maintaining and enhancing the value of these resources going forward. So back when I came on board in 2014, the board asked me to put together a quality assurance program, which is called Te Ara Miraka, which basically provided an incentive platform for our farmers to adopt good management practices We did that for several reasons. One, we saw that there was more dairy processors emerging in the Waikato, and we saw a procurement battle, if you like, or tension there that we needed to make sure that, one, we were building assurance and a cohesive community within our supply base. We also wanted to make sure these supply farms were resilient and that were ready for the new regulation that we saw coming down the line. And not just regulation, but also social license. As our consumers are getting closer to the source of their food, they wanted to know what were the origins of those food, and we needed to be able to create behaviour change and a mindset, hearts and minds mindset change within our farmers to see the value in responding to those calls. So we partnered with Eagle Technologies very much in the early days when we started working with Dairy NZ on sustainable milk plans. And I guess we had the foresight that it was engaging for farmers to be able to see their data in a geospatial format in those early days. But to be honest, the level of detail in those sustainable milk plans was pretty vanilla. But subsequent to that, things have merged very quickly, particularly with the current government and a requirement around e waka eke noa and a footprint around our greenhouse gas, but also the focus on the essential freshwater package. And so that linking with our Te Ara Miraka program, about 2 to 3 years ago, we had a conversation with Eagle where we wanted to partner with them to evolve quite a new bespoke type farm environment plan solution for our farmers to make sure that they didn't just go along with the compliance, but they saw the value and they saw the personalisation for their own farm. So part of the criteria that we set for Eagle was to make sure that we had a farm environment plan template or platform which empowered our farm environment planner to be able to look and be able to assess environmental risk on farm, as well as capturing those good farming practices that our farmers have been working through with Te Ara Miraka. So the great thing about this ArcGIS geospatial platform is that you can overlay multi-layers of data that in a lot of cases are widely accessible and freely accessible within New Zealand, and use that to create a model which identifies those particular risks. Our big focuses, not surprisingly, is around freshwater management and around greenhouse gas. And what we wanted to do was create a platform that our farmers could engage with that was personal about their particular property. They could understand what the features of risk were, understand what actions they needed to do, and then that was transparent to both the consumer and to regulatory authorities. So I'll just quickly take you through a little bit around what we've evolved. So our stakeholders, as I talked about, were our consumers, but if you see here, we also needed to make sure that we were fulfilling regional council requirements to make sure our farmers were meeting regional council requirements for consent, particularly since over 90% of our supply base is under the Waikato Regional Council jurisdiction. We wanted to capture our Te Ara Miraka gains. We're subscribers or members to the Dairy Sustainability Framework, so we needed a traceability story for those adoptions of those practices. We also need to make sure that we're aligning with the Dairy Tomorrow dairy strategy and with the Great Integrated Farm Plan strategy. So our goals, coming back to our own values, has always been about nurturing our world. It's been about making sure that we're leaving our resources in a better place than what they were when we first started, which is often quite a hard endeavour when you're trying to run a commercial business as well. So our first focus really has been around educating our farmers as to what is their footprint in their supply chain. And so we've created a website which outlines all that information, but to give that a bit better understanding is we need to relate it back to their particular farm and where they're actually having a specific footprint. It's really, really important so that farmers don't see this as compliance. They're more engaged because they can actually see how not only they're contributing to their sub-catchment issues, but also how it can actually benefit their business to mitigate those. So our focuses have been around obviously that connection between our farm and our land, and also our people and our communities, and that's something that resonates with our farmers. We talk about the need to reduce soil loss, about keeping our waterways swimmable, improving the efficiency of their production systems, improving biodiversity, enhancing biodiversity, and the benefits that has on natural nutrient cycles, protect drinking water sources, and protecting human health. And then, of course, now with E Waka Eke Noa and our contribution to the ETS, our farmers need to be very much aware too of our emissions footprint. So all of these risks are assessed currently on the current platform. So what we've done is we've created a farm environment plan which will meet the consenting requirements for the Plan Change 1 from Waikato Regional Council. And these are all the current subcatchments that our supply base fit into. And obviously the colours there represent the priorities. So that's been our focus, is to make sure that they've got farm environment plans that meet specifications for Plan Change 1 and in the timeframes listed here. So what we do first of all is we assess what the main factors of risk. So slope and aspect. So we overlay on a geospatial map that particular data set. We add to that soil type, as you can see here from the S maps. We then overlay rainfall data on top of that. We overlay land use capability model on top of that. And then we also understand a map where our waterways are, tributaries, and in addition to that, man-made drains and such like. So what we're trying to do is basically build a picture here around, and you can see on this particular farm, you can see that we've also plotted where the effluent application area is, where their irrigation sites are, where their tracks and dairy races and drains and waterways. We're also looking at slope class there, areas that have been planted out in forestry, areas that are wetlands, flood prone, and altogether the farmer is able to zoom in on those and have a look at specifically what those areas of risk are. We'll attach to them photographs. So this is all done in collaboration with the farm owner and their business plans. So for example, here you could see here's some waterways that they've had planted off, and so we're capturing those actions there, what it looked like before and afterwards. We're identifying those wetlands. And the great thing at the moment is that we're building this on the same platform as the regional authority. So the regional authority, given the rights of the sign off from the farmer, will be able to, as part of their consent process, be able to go straight into this window and look at the relevant bits of information the farmer wants the council to see, which makes it a far more efficient system in getting rid of a lot of that paperwork. So as you can see, there's lots of other key aspects and features that impact on those particular focus areas of freshwater and greenhouse gas that we're focusing on, and we're capturing this, examples of infrastructure pre and post any action from the farmer. So that's pretty much where we've got to so far of our farm environment plan. The next focus for us is to, because we've seen the benefits of engagement from our farmers in this area and its relatability, is we're now in discussions with Igor around future advancements into putting on health and safety layer on top of this, which farmers will be able to share with contractors and give them advance warning as to areas of risk for their staff when coming on farm to do work, and being able to sign off on those risks before they even step foot on the farm. It also allows for better interaction with farm staff, where they can update as they see risk arrive and remove it as it's been mitigated. In addition to that, there's biosecurity, which is again the same. We have contractors come on farm, they can understand what your biosecurity plan is, which Miraka farmers have. And in addition to that, we also are looking at new focus around identifying biodiversity areas that need to be focused on, areas of gain, and being able to evaluate some through a form of index where the hotspot areas are. So there's just a large opportunity within the ArcGIS platform to be able to meet a lot of these social license needs that I talked about. Social license in the sense of consumer needs, but also regulatory authority. So it's a great tool that we're working through, and look forward to working with Eagle on this in the future. Ka pai.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Grant. And I think one of the points you made there about kind of the information being personalised to farmers and the need for that, you know, them being able to see their farm, their risks and their mitigations, kind of that personalisation is really key, and especially towards that adoption. So it's awesome to be able to see that kind of happening within your organisation. So thank you very much for that. So next we're going to be hearing from Bronwyn Rodgers, who's the Geospatial Services Manager at Pamu Farms of New Zealand. So Pamu, Bronwyn has actually built Pamu's geospatial capability from mostly around kind of data acquisition and map production into powerful analytic resources that support business decision making. Now today she's going to be talking to us about kind of another compliance story, but around a really hot topic, especially in recent weeks, and that's around winter cropping and kind of how Pamu have tackled awareness of this with the ArcGIS Field app. So we'll now hear from Bronwyn.
In the realm of New Zealand agriculture, winter grazing of forage crops is a hot topic, with news items this week around national policy statement rules and political posturing by the opposition over changes being made by the government for practical implementation of the rules. This story map charts our journey creating digital tools to aid our farmers, to influence their management practices and help them to meet these emerging regulations. It highlights the business value that ArcGIS and its associated applications have provided for the organisation. I'll start with some commentary regarding the problem, then introduce the company, then describe the pathway we took to alleviate the problem, and then describe our more current and future related work. The root problem is the management of winter grazing of forage crops, which have traditionally been widely used as a supplementary food source for farm stock when pasture growth is reduced in the winter. The most visible component of this practice is bare ground as the crop is fed off in strips, and the resulting formation of mud as stock are concentrated in small areas. There is increasing public scrutiny of many farming practices, and we wanted to arm our farmers with interactive tools to assist them and to record the management actions they were putting in place. So I'll run through the story map now. The why, the mud, it affects animal health, it affects people, reduces soil health, and increases potential for sediment and nutrient leaching. This happens where farmland is planted in forage crops, mostly in Southland, but to a lesser extent in other regions. As I've already described, this happens when crops are intensively grazed, principally in winter. Last year, people saw and took photos of animals, stock, in appalling conditions. Look how deep that animal is in mud and water. It's not good for their health. And this image here clearly shows sediment in a small waterway that leads directly into a large river. So these people launched a campaign in the media, both print and on radio. They got comment from the Chief Veterinary Association's Chief Vet, who talked about how these conditions affect stock. And Mr. Robson commented on pollution and how it affects the environment. So what we did, but first I'll tell you who we are. Pamu is the brand name for Landcook Farming Limited. Pamu stands for Best Practice in Sustainable and Safe Farming, and for the unique provenance of New Zealand foods, nutrition, products and fibre on global markets. We chose the Maori word Pamu not just for its literal meaning to farm, but also to reflect the Maori concept of guardianship, kaitiakitanga. You can see that our farms are spread from Northland right through to Southland. We are a state-owned enterprise with that nationwide portfolio of farms that produce milk, beef, lamb, wool, venison, wood and more. We strive to be a leader in New Zealand agriculture, carefully creating natural products of high quality. In the Southland region, we farm just over 42,000 hectares, with the bulk of the farms located around the Te Anau Basin. Currently, just under 4% of the area of these farms is planted in forage crop for winter stock feed. Decisions about which paddocks will be planted in forage crops are made around September, October for grazing the following winter season. As I said, that there are two parts to winter cropping, and the first part is selecting the appropriate location, and then the second part is managing the grazing of the crop. So back to what we did, it must be stated that none of the photos or videos used in the media campaign represented activities on our farms. Our course of action was proactive. So last year, our multidisciplinary group got together and our soil specialist created a one-page decision tree, which you can see is quite complex. It has many factors in it and many decision parts to it. I saw this and just thought that the form-based survey and Survey 123 would be a great enabler to make this much easier to negotiate. So thought about design considerations, needing to be simple to use, portable, relatable, provide feedback where applicable, and be accessible by remote staff. So I took that decision tree and put it into a general section, another section relating to sediment loss, another section related to nutrient loss, and then subsequently animal health and people safety, and has a decision statement. So now I'll run through a few screenshots of how it works. It is designed to be a decision tree, so there are conditional questions there that, depending on the answer to previous questions. You'll see that a coordinate and a paddock name were required to locate the area, and then some other general information was recorded. Moving on to the sediment loss, you can see that different questions here. If there's a waterway in the paddock, then what areas, depending on the slope of the paddock, how wide the buffer needs to be. If it is deemed that this will reduce the area of crop excessively, then a decision is based that find a different paddock. If it will not exceed reduce the area excessively, the user progresses on through the app. If there are critical source areas, there's choices for mitigations to be put in place. Then we move on to nutrient loss considerations. And you can see that some of these are multi-choice. And then we move on to animal and people welfare options. Our user feedback was that it was easy to use and very effective. The guys thought their paddocks had been flat, but they then realised that there was slope. The questions about slope was qualitative. There is no facility to measure slope included, but we found that our users were inventive and downloaded a level app onto their phone, which they placed on the ground, and their perceptions of their paddock slopes were changed. Some paddocks assessed were rejected, and there were room for general comments for management actions to be recorded. From the survey, a report was formatted for individual records into a 2-page report that was then emailed back to the farm staff and could be used for regulatory purposes if required. We also formatted up a dashboard to keep track of the survey responses. This is in development form at the moment. So through using the app, our farmers looked at their land with fresh eyes, and it prompted deeper consideration of the appropriateness of the land they were planning to use. In the new year, regional councils and local and government, central government have been drafting regulations. And so our group responded with designing a further survey around actual management practices at the time of grazing. Again, we had questions whether there were waterways were present, critical source areas with choices of relevant mitigating actions, soil type management, soil compaction management, intense wet weather management, and animal health needs with choices for relevant mitigating actions. And you can see with the emphasis we put on this, that these questions in this section, the animal health section, are required. So I will show you some screenshots of some of the different options. Again, there are conditional questions depending on the answers of previous ones. So those are some of the options around waterways. Here around critical source areas. You can see that there's multi-choice answers here. Can take photos as verification of those actions. Here's some of the choices around soil type management, depending on the general soil type of the paddock, whether it's well drained or poorly drained. Whether there's been any soil compaction associated with cropping in the past. Choices around management of wet weather, intense wet weather events, and dependent on the stock type that are being grazed. Here's a little bit of rural vernacular as a response to a no for a plan. And then we move on to the animal health needs. As I noted before, these questions are required, and that if the user answers no, then there are advisory notes that pop up. This survey has now been completed, it has been published and is in use by our farmers now. So both of these apps were initially designed for internal use on Pamu farms. However, with minor adjustments around farm identification, they would be suitable for use in the wider industry. As noted earlier, Pamu strives to be a leader in New Zealand agriculture, and so we would be keen to collaborate with industry organisations to spread the benefit of these interactive tools. Media campaign last year brought this issue into the public arena, and there have been responses by the by government. So these tools, built with the power of Survey 123 and ArcGIS Online, will record the good practices of Pamu farmers and enable reporting of via the statistics via a dashboard. They could indeed be used more widely to record the good practices of a majority of New Zealand farmers. If you don't record, you cannot analyse. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Bronwyn. And I actually remember talking to Bronwyn about kind of what she had done and kind of realising how much she had revolutionised the way that winter cropping compliance was being done for the farmers. So it really kind of enabled them to see, like she said, they saw the land with new eyes. So thank you very much for that, Bronwyn. So next we're going to be hearing from Shane Wood. So Shane is the Managing Director of InfoPower, and he has a lot of experience in creating software solutions for real-world business problems. And this is namely, the presentation today is namely for the viticulture industry with their product Vinea. So today, Shane and also Josh Gore from Eagle are going to be taking us through what Vinea is, also going through why Eagle and InfoPower came together, and then also explaining what the geospatial vineyard model is. So we'll pass it over to Shane.
Hi, I'm Shane and I'm from InfoPower, and I'm here to talk about Vinea, which is our innovative solution for the viticulture sector. And in delivering this solution, we've partnered with Eagle. Our customers have a passion for growing the best grapes and producing the best wine in the world, made in the most beautiful country in the world. And the Vinea team have a passion to help them do this. Every day, wine growers make decisions about their crop and interventions, but often with incomplete information. By assembling information on terroir, viticultural practices, crop development, and the environment, we help growers to make more informed and timely decisions, all to produce the perfect drop of wine. We're working with some of New Zealand's biggest wine growers to develop innovations that will enhance vineyard decision making, improve yield and quality. These vineyards have become an integral part of our R&D team, just as Eagle. Let's take a look at vineyard data and where it comes from in the ecosystem. Firstly, we have the vineyard itself. The static information represents things like variety, clone, rootstock. Then you have the environment, which influences the vineyard, the temperature, the rainfall. The crop and its response to all this is influenced by the viticultural practices, the things that the viticulturist does to change things. Reducing number of bunches, reducing canopy, irrigation, all those sorts of things. It's a feedback loop, and as you can see, one thing can affect the other. In response to changing to viticultural interventions, the crop will respond. Who knows what's going to happen after that? So all this results in a large amount of data that's collected. Now, our challenge was, how can we use that data to enhance decision making? Vinea is block-centric. What that means is that information is collected at the block level and even at row level. We have crop notes, which are visual observations. We have phenological observations. We have crop samples. All those feed into the big picture of the block and the vineyard and how the crop's developing. In addition, you have the environment. You have sensors in the environment which are collecting temperatures, rainfall, doing calculations of growing degree days and so on. And all this is also mapped down to individual blocks where the crop is growing. We've got 5 years of doing this now. And in doing this, we've been looking at different tools that can be used to provide insights, from Power BI to Excel to now Esri's tool, ArcGIS. They've all got a part to play, but now we're going to talk about why ArcGIS has a particular part to play and why we came together with Eagle. I've already explained grape growing is complex. There's lots of interrelationships. We're dealing with spatial and temporal data, and we've got islands of data which Vinea is seeking to amalgamate and store in a structured form. The difficulty in exploring and extracting this means that we need some quality tools. We also need to develop standards. There are no standards for the representation of vineyard data in a flexible and structured way, so we're building those. And Eagle are providing some valuable insights into this. The result? Well, the result will be what you see, a geospatial vineyard model. This integrates spatial and temporal data into one centralized portal. There's a dynamic link between the visual representation and the data, in the back end. And tools that are already built and powerful and well accepted allow easy visualization and exploration of data. Question you might ask is, why did we choose to use ArcGIS for this? Because obviously it's an investment for us and our clients. Well, the reality is, to do anything else would have been a huge cost to us to build it from the ground up. ArcGIS, well, it's the leader in global geospatial technology. We aspire to be the best in our domain, in viticulture, in the vineyard. ArcGIS is the best. It makes sense to work together. And also, we see this as a tool that allows all the data in Vinea to be used together in one place in a spatial lens, and a tool we can depend on. Finally, vineyards gain control over their own data. They own their maps, something they haven't really done before. What future applications do we see for ArcGIS and Vinea integration? And a particularly good example is sampling for pest and disease. Traditionally, you're sampling a block and measuring incidence and severity, and you're coming up with a couple of numbers. Maybe there's a 10% incidence of disease and the overall severity is 10%. However, if you look at the raw data and you are able to do this in a stratified way, you would see that there are hotspots, such as illustrated on this picture. Using ArcGIS, we can drill straight into those hotspots. We can use a variety of tools to track things in real time, and we know exactly what's happening and where it's happening, all in one place.
Thanks, Shane. So let's take a closer look at the ArcGIS platform, which is being used to integrate and to surface this rich vineyard data from Vinea. Here we have the Vinea Vineyard Explorer. This is an experience builder application that allows for the editing or the linking of Vinea data to vineyard geometries, essentially building a dynamic layer that resides within the platform and can be used throughout the rest of the app suite to monitor or to explore the data further. Two areas I'll go into a bit later. So first things first, here we see we have a list of organizations that might hold data in Vinea. So let's go to Sam Martin and select a vineyard to view and to edit. So you can see here, we've zoomed to our Advark vineyard and we can see the full extent of the blocks and all of the blocks we can explore. And we can see detailed information about each harvest, as well as block level details that can be edited right here and feed back into the layer, but also Vinea itself. These are all feeding in from Vinea. Now you can see by the blocks that have this layers symbol that they have already got an established link through to Vinea. But this harvest, Sam Martin have acquired a new block to the northeast that is in Vinea, but not linked to a block in ArcGIS. Creating a link between data in Vinea and a block geometry is easy. I can come along and upload what I already have. As Shane mentioned earlier, sometimes vineyards might have their data in spreadsheets or PDFs or shapefiles, but we can bring this into the spatial realm. So I can just go ahead and upload a shapefile of this new 2020 block. And then build the link. Now this rich Vinea data is connected to my block geometry and is ready to be used as part of this layer. So now that our data resides in the ArcGIS ecosystem, we can start to bring it together with other layers of information to get more insights and to monitor trends. In this case, that same data that we just saw and edited is being brought into an ArcGIS dashboard where we can delve into and pull out temporal patterns related to production performance down to that vital block level. And then we can relate this to our production targets. And we can also see in real time how many dead or missing vines we have. In addition to this, we can start to build up even more data by capturing new information that feeds into this system. So here we have a series of deep links to Survey 123, the form-centric data capture application that allows field workers to easily enter information, in this case about dead or missing vines. Now, the key thing is here, as with all data inputting workflows, to maintain our accuracy and to reduce any manual input errors. With Survey 123, we can auto-populate certain fields to bring over specific values. In this case, you can see that many fields already have specific values from our block. Now, in vineyard management, ensuring you're on the right side of a vine when entering information related to perhaps where a vine is dead or needs to be pulled out is vital. On a 2-kilometre long row, you don't want to muck up which side of the road to take machinery down. Tools like Quick Capture take the hassle out of data capture when you're out in the field, allowing for easy and accurate rapid-fire input, in this case of healthy versus diseased plants, so that if I'm surveying a row, I can quickly hit diseased or capture specific information on what infection I'm seeing and carry on monitoring my plants. This button click is geo-enabled, so I don't even need to do anything else. However, if I wanted to, I could also take a photo. The plant location is accurately captured, so I can come back later and address those plants. Now, moving on from data linking and monitoring and the field capture side of things, let's take a look at how this newly geo-enabled data can be explored further to better understand our vineyard and our surrounding area. ArcGIS Insights is an analytics workbench that allows you to explore your data and answer the questions you didn't know to ask. Insights is based on the concept of cards, which allow you to display your data using a map, a chart, or a table. Here we are looking at vineyard data. The first step to our analysis is to explore the data. Using the map, we can see what different varieties of vines we have and where each vineyard block is located. We can use a bar graph to compare the number of plants we have and a summary table to see how many rows and hectares we have of each variety. We can also change our card types to bring out different aspects of our data. The next step to our analysis is joining in additional data. Here, we are bringing in vintage data for each block. We can see yields over time for each variety and variances in tonnages across our blocks. We can drill down still further into our data by dynamically filtering our sources. We can also display our process in Analysis View. Here, we could update our page as we receive further years of vintage information. As we see in this map, something seems to be affecting our yields other than just the size of each block. So let's perform some analysis and bring in data from other sources to explore this variance further. First, we calculate our yield per hectare through adding a field to our data table. Now, before we start adding data, let's use a new feature that's been released in Insights and set a custom default extent so that when we zoom our map, we can return to a view of our vineyard. Now, let's see the real power of Insights through bringing in some soils data from the Marlborough District Council. Now you can see here the vineyards with higher yields appear to be in this more sandy loam. Let's bring in a layer showing some historic flood information to try and explain why we might be finding this loam. So you can see here that the coarser sandy loam appears to coincide with these flood areas. We could also explore further variables that might affect our data. For example, we could add a scatter plot matrix with information about yields at a fine level. Finally, We can share individual pages or entire workbooks of our analysis to communicate information with others. Here we have a map which could be used to help explore further areas for other blocks. We have included soil types from our analysis earlier, as well as local roads sourced from LINS. Using insights, we have calculated a buffer to 200 meters to help guide selection of a new vineyard site. ArcGIS Insights allows you to go beyond maps and create engaging and intuitive data visualizations, creating true business intelligence for your data.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Shane and Josh. So our final speaker today is going to be Bryan Graham. So Bryan is the digital manager for Kaingaroa Timberlands, and today he's going to be talking to us about their digital transformation. So we're just going to go ahead and hand it straight over to Bryan.
Hello. Thank you very much for the opportunity of presenting today. My name is Bryan Graham and I am the Digital Manager for Kaingaroa Timberlands. Today I'm going to be talking about how we're using Esri products towards our digital transformation. Basically, as a company, we're looking at ways to improve what we're doing today and also how we can do things differently in the future. And Esri is a key partner in us being able to do that. I want to say thank you very much to Murray and to the team at Eagle, first of all for the opportunity to present, but also just for the help that they've given us on this journey. We certainly couldn't be doing what we're doing with the Esri product range without them, and they've been a fantastic team to work with over the many years that they've actually been a partner with us. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about us as a business, and I'm going to talk about how we're leveraging these projects on our journey. To begin with, this is Kaingaroa Timberlands. So we manage the Kaingaroa forest, which is based in the central North Island. It's becoming quite famous for mountain biking. And the forest is owned by a holding company called Kaingaroa Timberlands, and the land is owned by our local iwi. We cover about 200,000 hectares, as you can see there. About 94% of that is radiata pine, and 5% of it is Douglas fir. We also have a very small patch of mixed species which we're trialing. Our operations are quite large, so we run about 4.5 million tons per year of harvest. 60% of that goes to our international market, which is predominantly China. Sorry, other way around. 60% of that goes to local domestic markets, and 40% of it goes to an international market. We do try and prioritize local producers. We replant everything that we harvest, so that's usually about 6,000 to 8,000 hectares per year, and that's usually done at this time of year actually. Our ownership, as I've spoken about, is Kaingaroa Timberlands and the land by iwi, and that means that we have a key partnership with them in making sure that we're good custodians of our land, and that we have a long-standing relationship with them. The infrastructure, so we've got a stem processing plant. This is essentially a plant where we bring in full stems as the trees are cut down, and then we process them and cut to order basically. And then we have a railhead with a debarker for everything that goes offshore. So we have been debarking logs for about a year now, so we don't need to use methyl bromide anymore. We have a large off-highway roading network. What that means is that within the forest we have private road, and that means that we control the access in and out of the forest. And then we also have a nursery and a genetics breeding company that we operate as well. So quite a large operation. One of the important things to note is that where the forest is located, there's not a lot of digital comms, there's not internet or mobile coverage. And so this is a key challenge for us, as we'll talk about later today, in how we manage the information and the data that we collect. So everything that we deploy has to be able to work in an offline capability because you don't have online access. And that's true for about 80% of the estate. And it's been a real challenge that we've been trying to fix, and one that we'll continue to try to fix into the future. In terms of the management company, so we're about 100 staff. We're a mix of foresters and admin, as that said, but it's also starting to change. So we have GIS experts. We're starting to get people who are more up to speed with technology as well, instead of just your traditional forester. So as any kind of business in the forestry in the primary sector, we're all seeing some change in terms of the skill sets that we need. We employ between 700 and 800 contractors. That's everything from truck drivers through to people doing planting, through to harvest managers. So the whole business is operated kind of in a contractual way. We're based in Rodgers, which, as I said, the central North Island. And that's really a little bit about the company. It's important to understand the scale that we're operating at. We're not just a kind of a smaller company. We're a very large player in the market, and that comes with a set of challenges. We're processing anywhere from about 500 to 800 trucks per day. We've got a lot of people out in the forest, and so the ability to just digitize that or transform that is not an easy thing to do. And as most of you will be aware, culture is the biggest thing to change. So we're trying to use tools, we're trying to implement solutions that are easy to use, that people can pick up, and that it's going to fit into the way people work today. So some of the value that we've had traditionally from ArcGIS and spatial information is really kind of, it's been our source of the truth. And so we've been using ArcGIS for a really long time together with Eagle, and a lot of that has been with orthophotos. So just being able to bring in a geo-rectified photo and use it to manage the forest. We do satellite imagery for a little bit more of the overview. We're not using it too much in operations day to day. And then we're starting to bring UAVs into precision as well. We flew LiDAR over their entire estate about 5 years ago, and that really gave us an amazing digital terrain model. And we've used that a lot for engineering purposes. And what we've then been able to do is start to use that for our inventory as well. And so we've used a lot for the LiDAR, but we haven't really got the most out of that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. What we do is we take our entire forest estate and we divide it into these spatial blocks, which usually you'll call compartments or stands. And this is a way for us to divide our entire forest into essentially little farms of a few hectares at a time. And this is really critical to the way the GIS operates. We wouldn't be able to do that or manage at this scale if we didn't have kind of some spatial solution, and ArcGIS really does give us that power and the ability to manage that. And as I said, one source of the truth. So we use a land record system called GeoMaster that links into our Esri platform. And so that means that we can manage everything in a seamless way. And it's been a solution that we've used for quite a long time, and it works well for us as a business. So the problem that we were trying to solve in this particular instance was we were really trying to remove the need for paper. And the reason we were trying to do that is not just because we wanted to go digital, but what happens is that you often get a range of re-entry, or your data collection is not as efficient as it could be. Someone goes out into the forest, they've left a piece of paper or the form back in the office, or they've printed the wrong form. Someone goes out with a map and they've decided that they don't need that particular map, or that the map is out of date. And so you have to go all the way back to the office, which for us is about a 40-minute drive. And that's a real problem. So what we were trying to do is streamline the way that the data was captured, to be able to capture the data offline, as I've spoken about extensively, and really to leverage existing digital technology. What we were starting to do is roll out iPads across the business, because number one, that meant people could take the documents with them. They didn't have to worry about printing things off. They didn't have to print maps. They could view the maps. They could view the Word documents. But also the fact that people are just becoming more technologically aware. And in terms of the internal technology that we had, we do a lot with Microsoft, which I'll talk about. And obviously the Esri products that we were already getting as part of our enterprise suite. We thought, well, why can't we use some of these to increase the efficiency? And then again, the single source of the truth. How do we make sure that we're bringing all that information back into our GIS system? So we've been a long-time Esri partner, as I mentioned, and so the products that were particularly of interest to us were Survey 123 and Collector. Talking about mainly Survey 123 today, this was really a great tool. It's very easy to use. It's an easy way to set up forms, and our users really found it easy and simple to enter data on that. It works on a majority of platforms, and so for us that was fantastic. We could just deploy it onto iPads, but it's really been something that we're seeing kind of a spearhead. Some people took it up, and now large numbers of people across the company are just developing their own forms. So it's been a fantastic tool for us. We also, as I said, work with Microsoft quite closely, and it tied in with the timing of us moving to Microsoft Teams. We were starting to do more with SharePoint and Power BI. And so what we wanted to do is leverage those those different tools so that any information that was being collected in the field could then be deployed across the business easily without multiple copies of documents, potentially bringing them into dashboards or potentially bringing them into a team environment, and just really improve the way that the information and data was not only used but shared across the business. So what we then did is we deployed the iPads, as I spoke about, and we worked very closely with Eagle to create forms. So on the right-hand side there, you can see an example of one of the surveys that we did early on. We're now starting to pull through our foresting compartment directly from our spatial system, so they're getting that information automatically. The user doesn't have to enter that. The location is obviously updated with where you are. And what's important is that that worked offline for us as well. So that was amazing that you could get that information. And even if you didn't, you could come back into the office and move the pin around. And that was a really important piece of functionality for us. As I said, it's an easy to use interface. This is just taken off my iPhone. And I can see the form on my iPhone or on my iPad. And I don't have to be developing the forms for a range of different platforms. The Survey 123 took that pain away from us. So it was really easy to do. We did the first couple with Eagle, and we still do some of the more complex ones with them, because you can be an entry-level user and get some done, but you also can be an advanced user, and the tool is really, really powerful. So they really helped us get into the software, helped us get up and running with it, and continue to support us with some of our more challenging projects. And then what we did is we automated that workflow. So we used something called Integromat for the first view to say, well, I want to take the information out of the survey. I then want to put it into Excel and into an SQL database. And then I really want to produce a dashboard at the end of that. And so they helped us Eagle helped us set that up. We're also using Microsoft Flow or Power Automate now to do the same kind of thing. So how can we pull information as it is entered, put it into either an Excel spreadsheet or SQL database, depending on how the end user gets their data. This is just an example of what the information can look like. So on the left-hand side, you can see you've got a range of dots across the estate, and you'll see that those are all in offline range. So you don't have internet coverage where those are being collected, but the accuracy has been very good, and we've been able to, as you come back into range, it automatically syncs up. On the right-hand side is an example of the types of information that can be collected, and we've put in a photo as well. And so these dashboards can either be built directly in Esri in the platform, or what we're doing in this case is pulling it out and putting it into into Power BI. Some of the future opportunities that we see for these products. So we currently do a lot with paper dockets across our entire estate and our supply chain. We're going to try and move away from that. We don't believe that Survey 123 will be the full solution for that, but it'll be part of it. We're also going to use more of the analytics tools in ArcGIS. As I said, we're seeing people move away from paper and into maps. So our team are doing less map production. So this means that our GIS team can really focus on some of the analysis that we haven't really been able to do, for example, our LiDAR data set, and really being able to kind of leverage the full power of what's going into ArcGIS. We're also wanting to leverage cloud, and in particular Power BI. So we're hitting some bottlenecks with what we're doing just on desktop, or we run on Citrix. So we're looking at things like Microsoft Azure to enable us to get more power, to reduce our compute times, and really improve the analytics that we can do. And we're going to continue to use Power BI as our tool of choice to pull the information in for dashboards. And that's really all I had to say this morning. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present, and thank you for listening. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Love to talk to you about your different use cases and just give you some more information as required. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Bryan. And I think, or perhaps the audience will agree, is that a lot of the problems and the challenges that you came across and then you overcame probably resonate with quite a few people out there trying to move from that paper process into something that's a little bit more accessible to people and works offline. And I know that Survey 123 has been really successful for that. And I'm sure that some of our other presentations, like some of the stuff that Bronwyn went through, also kind of correlates to that those sort of benefits of using tools like that. So thank you very much. So I guess that wraps up our user presentations for today. And we'll have actually these presenters all jump on with us in a wee second to go through a bit of a Q&A. So if you have any questions, pop onto the Chime platform and just go through that method of asking a question, and we'll be able to answer those for you as well. So if you have any last minute questions, you want to pop those in there. If you want to know more information about some of the components that we've covered today, you can head to the Eagle AgTech website, where we have some use cases. Some of the stories that you've heard today are also actually on that webpage, and also some other links to videos which are on the YouTube channel, which is the next resource that we've got here as well. So alongside the presentation that we showed earlier from Julian and myself, we have a series of videos that kind of walk through those common patterns of use. So I encourage you to go have a look and see kind of how we can apply the ArcGIS platform to solve these sort of common patterns of use or problems that are happening in the agriculture industry. And then of course, if you want to know more specific information, feel free to contact us. I'm sure you all know Murray very well as well. So feel free to reach out to him if you have any specific questions, either now or after the conference as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask the presenters to come back now, and we've got some questions that have come in throughout the session, so thank you very much to those that have submitted them. And so I'll just ask some questions and then we'll get some feedback from our presenters, who did an amazing job on this, by the way. So the first one that we've come through is actually a general one, so I'll just address that first. So someone's asked if we'll be providing a recording to this presentation with all these great user stories in it. Yes, that will be available, and it will be provided to you after the session as well. So we'll make sure that's available. Cool. So the first question we've got here is for Grant. And we've got Grant here, I believe.
Yeah, kia ora everyone.
Hey Grant. We've got actually quite a good question here for you. So you talked about bringing in other layers of data into the FEP, the Farm Environmental Plan. The question is, how did you decide what was a priority to bring in, and how easy was it to bring in that data to the FEP?
So I basically relied on our farm sustainability manager, who's a certified farm environment planner, to know what the particular risk elements were in identifying risks to greenhouse gases or risks to, say, soil erosion or nitrogen leaching, for example, and just to identify what layers were required. We talked to our partners like Murray and Jamie at Eagle to identify what information was publicly available out there. And so we knew what the main factors were based on our nutrient management knowledge, and basically just went to them and said, hey, this is the information we need, where can we source it from? So they came back to us and said, well, you can get, for example, LUC class from this area, and you can get this information from this source. And so they helped sort of partner with us to pull it all together. In regards to our future focuses, that's something that we are probably going to create from scratch. When I'm referring to things like our health and safety and biosecurity focuses going forward.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that's I guess a good point about people being able to provide you with these readily available data sets as well, like going, hey, here's LUC and this is where it's accessible from. As a follow-up question just to that really quickly as well, because we've got some other ones that are kind of flying through, were there any kind of key data sets that you found are either missing or you'd like to see kind of brought out for the agriculture sector in future? Point about people being able to provide you with these readily available data sets as well, like going, hey, here's LUC and this
Sorry, I'm getting some repeat here.
Yeah, there we go. Hopefully that's all right.
Yeah, so I don't know. You've got me on the hop there a little bit. Yeah,
it's okay.
Off the
Don't
top
worry
of
about
head,
it. I know I definitely put you on.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all good. No worries at all. And there's a lot of data sets out there readily available right now, like you highlighted. So I think that's also links back to that baseline web map that we talked about at the start. So thank you for that. Some other questions that have come in. So we've got one here for Bronwyn, actually. So Bronwyn, do you have any future areas within Pamu that you're looking to use those field apps? You talked about kind of broadening the use outside of your own organisation for that particular winter cropping example, but just for your organisation, what are the other use cases that you're looking at?
So as the regulations change, we can very easily insert extra questions and into those surveys, and use the survey to actually capture more information and perhaps more detailed information. So yeah, we will change our surveys as required by regulations.
Yeah, and I guess the adaptability is kind of a key thing there, that your farmers are already using Survey 123 in their BAU, so kind of adding in that extra information isn't an onus for somebody to take and adopt, right? They can just literally pick it up and you're like, hey, here's a new form, we've had new regulations come out, and we can kind of use the same tool, but maybe for a slightly different purpose, which is the key benefit there.
Yes, yep, that's right. Mm.
Cool, thank you for that. Let's find, oh, we've got one here for Bryan. Okay. So, oh, I guess this is quite a good one as well. Yeah. So you mentioned culture was one of the biggest things that, you know, you had to change. What do you think was kind of one of the turning points for your staff when it came to using some of the apps?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that initially it's about putting the tool in someone's hands. So when you show them, when you talk about, for example, an iPad or being able to take it out into the forest, you know, that doesn't really kick in until they've left a piece of paper back in the office, or when they don't have to pull out a paper map and it's raining, they can actually look at it on a screen. So I think the watershed moment really is when people get something in their hands and they kind of realize that they're not just replacing what they did previously, but they're actually able to do more than they thought was possible. And then again, they're not coming back into the office and having to re-enter information or to gather multiple pieces from you know, that have been left everywhere. It's all been done for them. So it's saved them a lot of time, and no one really enjoys mundane tasks. So a lot of that has been automated and replaced. So that's really kind of what's led to it.
Yeah, and also I guess that whole factor of, oh, I thought I recorded something, but now I can't find it anymore. When you're doing multiple things in one day, maybe perhaps documents get lost. So tools like this really do help kind of increase your the ability to get the accurate data and maintain it, and it can be auditable as well, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool, thank you for that. And because we've done everyone else, we'll try and find one for Shane here. Okay, so yield prediction, or yield production prediction, sorry, is a trend that's kind of high interest in agriculture and viticulture. Do you see kind of application for ArcGIS within that space?
Yes, I do. At the moment, a lot of yield estimates are done at block level, but by adding a spatial component to each row in the block, then we have the ability to drive estimation of productivity down to row level or even the vine level, where some of our clients are looking. And one of the issues that vineyards face is that they do tend to redesignate what the shape of a block looks like. And so the estimates of tons per hectare at block level, if you're looking at that historically, they don't necessarily mean the same thing, because the shape and the area of the block can change. But because we'll know the position of every row within the block, then effectively we can drive the average productivity per vine down to that row level. And so in the future, if that row belongs within a different group of rows, then we can know exactly what that productivity was. So geospatial, adding the geospatial component into a vineyard and using that is very powerful.
Yeah, and getting that row level, I remember we talked about this earlier as well, getting that row level, it really increases the accuracy. Like you said, that you're going down to that level, you're getting actually that accurate data. You can do your predictions more accurately, which is the benefit of being able to kind of capture that information.
Yes, it's not just for the yield estimation, it's for pest and disease as well. So if we're doing crop sampling and we're, instead of just coming up with an overall incidence and severity, effectively we're stratifying our sample on the go really, and we'll be able to see the hotspots of virus or disease within the block, and that enables us to do more focused sampling in future.
Yeah, there's so many different applications. It's so cool to be able to see where else it can be applied. So thank you very much for that. And I realize we've now hit 3:15. So thank you very much to our presenters, and thank you for jumping on that Q&A as well. We really appreciate you being there to answer those sort of questions for us. And for all the extras that have come through today, we'll be making sure we follow up with those in the coming week. So just before we leave everybody and say goodbye, just a bit of information that the platform that you've been using today, the Chime platform, it'll be available for 2 weeks from today. So you can go and have a look at content on there, and you can also interact with our sponsors and things like that as well. You also can ask questions for as long as you like during this 2 weeks. And you'll be able to see we'll be sending those answers to any questions, not only about this session, but about any aspect of the conference back to you post-conference. And if you took notes through the platform, just make sure to send them to yourself as well. So thank you very much to everyone who jumped on today. I hope you found it very useful, and thank you very much to our presenters again for all your great stories that you've been able to share with us. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Lauren.